Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about repotting plants. I'm going to go over 4 times or scenarios you might want to repot your plants and show you some examples of my own plants that I have here. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mary. I'm a mother of 2 and I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm bringing you along on my growing and gardening journey. I primarily like to grow houseplants as well as things I can eat because I live in Canada. That gives me something to do in the winter and in the summer. So come along with me. Okay, so number 1, what's one way to know that your plant might need repotting? I have this really nice spider plant from my sister. It is in a nursery pot with drainage. And one way to know is you may start seeing roots come out of the bottom. You can see these roots coming out here. There's only a few, but roots coming out of the bottom of your plant means that it might not have as much room left to grow. I have another example here of this beautiful polka dot plant, and you can see underneath there that there's quite a few roots coming out. So these plants are both fairly forgiving. Polka dot and spider plants, they can do fine with their roots in there for a little while, but they are a good example. I wanted to wait a little bit to acclimatize it to my home before I repotted it. I also bought it to go in this really cute pot, and when I size it up, it's not going to fit in here anymore. So I wanted to enjoy the look I had been going for. Roots grow at different rates, so it's important to check your plants. I bought this at the same time as that polka dot plant, and you can see there's no roots coming out the bottom, so this one won't need to be repotted. It's just a little example that you can check your plants to see. Okay, so the second time you might want to repot your plants is if your plants are not in a pot that has drainage. So sometimes you can get gifted something like this as a really beautiful succulent arrangement, but the problem is this pot doesn't have any drainage, and I'm actually really glad I started planning this video last week specifically because of this plant, because I had planned to repot it. Succulents are sensitive to water, and so you need to be careful you don't overwater them, and when there's no drainage holes, it's really easy for too much water to get in here. This beautiful one also has rocks and some green moss up here, and so it's actually really hard to even feel the top of the soil to know if it's time to water it. Now, the reason I'm really happy that I'm doing this video today is, as you can see, there's actually mold. This succulent, this one on this side, is rotting. There is too much water in here. And given the condition of it, I was gifted this a couple weeks ago. It was probably on its way out already. So it's a good example of how something absolutely beautiful that was gifted to look really nice. This is actually, something that does need to be repotted. Now what I will do is I will find a nursery pot with drainage that can go in this really nice lovely pot here and just sort of sit inside. This plant is done for, so it's gonna go out, but I'm hoping to still save these two. These two feel quite nice, they feel sturdy. If I look in, I don't see any mold on them. So I'm really hoping I can rescue 2/3 of this plant. This is another example. This plant I've had for many, many years. Before I was really that into gardening and things like that, I replanted it into this pot. Again, not only do I have the drainage issue, I talked about roots in the first reason to repot. I don't know what the roots look like because I can't pull it out to look at them. So this one I'm gonna repot. I think it does need a bigger pot at this time. You'll see it doesn't look the healthiest on these leaves and that some has been cut off. I had it in a south facing window and I realized it was getting sunburnt, but the inner leaves are doing really well. So it'll come back, but this is another example of when you would want to repot. So number 3 on the list is when you want to divide your plants. There's lots of reasons to divide your plants, but repotting is a really great way. So I'm going to link down below, but I did a video on snake plant division already. I think it's actually my most popular video. And I had my snake plant in this pot, and all of this was in one. And I decided this was the main plant, and these were the offshoots coming out. I decided I wanted more snake plants in my house, so I divided it. Now I have 2 plants instead of 1. You may see that this goes against my put it in a pot with drainage. I know for snake plants in particular, for me, I've had them for many years, that I only water these about once a month, and I've never had issues with water or drainage, so I didn't know I could plant them directly in here. I have another example here. This is a succulent I was gifted about 3 years ago. And it's doing incredibly well. So this large piece here is the main plant. And then you can actually see there are a number of offshoots. So this is one here, and this is another here, and there's actually a third over here. So if I wanted to, I could also divide it. It's not necessary. So this succulent is really happy, it's doing well in this pot. I could leave it in here, but if I wanted more succulents, I could absolutely divide one out. So the fourth reason you might want to repot a plant is if you have any concerns around your plant's soil health. And so you may recall seeing these. This was a really sickly jade plant that I had in my house. It was here when I moved in. It had a lot of missing broken pieces, and I suspected some sort of soil fungus or root rot because of the way the plant was. And so what I did in the video, which I will also link down below, is I took 2 cuttings from that plant. So this is one and this is the other, and I directly potted them in soil. The old soil was completely thrown out. I did suspect fungus or root rot, so you don't want to keep that. This is brand new cactus and succulent soil. And I wanted to show you an update because if you saw that video, there it is, you can see this one is growing a new leaf bud. So that means we very likely have roots on this. So this cutting is now becoming a new jade plant. It looks like it's healthy. So that's really good news. And I'm so happy. The bigger one that I actually had a lot more optimism for didn't have any leaf buds for a while. And the other day I saw, and I don't know, it might be too small to even show up on camera, there's a little leaf bud in there growing. So that's another reason you may want to repot, is if you have any concerns about the soil health. It's a way to give your plants a second chance at life. Okay, so those were our 4 reasons to repot. Number 1, you have roots coming out the bottom. You think your plant might be root bound. You want to give it a bit more room to grow. Number 1. Number 2, your plant is in the wrong type of pot, particularly one that might not have drainage. That's a good time to replant, to give it space to drain and make sure that it has the right amount of moisture content. Number 3 would be if you want to divide or multiply your plants, right? If you have something like a beautiful snake plant that has sent off offshoots and you want multiple snake plants or succulents in your home, then you can divide it and go to other rooms or other places, and also give the plant more room to grow, and you might get more offshoots and more plants. And then number 4, of course, is if you have any soil health concerns or problems, repotting, replanting is a great way to help deal with those. So some repotting tips that I have for you. This should go without saying at this point in the video, but I highly recommend planting in these nursery type pots that have really good drainage. And then you can put them in a decorative pot afterwards. This is a good example. I really like this decorative pot I got at the watering can in Vineland, and the polka dot plant inside is in a pot with some drainage. The second tip I have is around which soil you use. So I'm gonna link my snake plant and jade plant videos down below, the repotting, but you wanna make sure you're using the right type of soil for the plant that you have. So succulents, cacti, things like that, things that need somewhat dry, well-draining soil, use a specific mix made for it or make your own. Don't just put them in regular potting mix. It might retain too much moisture and then you may be prone to root problems and fungus and things like that. I can link down below to the Miracle-Gro soil that I use. I actually checked quite a few garden centers near me and they suggested I go to Amazon to buy it because they were always sold out every time I went in. So I'll link down below.
Editing Mary jumping in here, I wanted to let you know as an Amazon associate I earned from qualifying purchases, so the links down below will be affiliate links.
Another repotting tip I have is to be aware of how long you've had your plant before you repot it. So for example, I mentioned I got this plant and basically as soon as I got it home, the roots started coming out the bottom. I wanted to give it about a month in my home before I replanted to get adjusted to its new setting. It's up in my son's room, so how much light it gets, things like that. Before I repot it, you don't want to cause too much shock. And of course, bringing a plant home from the store does give it a new environment. And so you do want to give it that time to adjust before repotting, which is another adjustment in and of itself. Okay, and the last tip that I have for you today is to only go one size up. This little tiny succulent, if I was to divide it, or even if I was to repot it as a whole into a large 4-inch pot or an 8-inch pot, it wouldn't be happy. These guys like to grow in somewhat contained areas, and so you want to make sure that the pot you're buying is just the next size up. So that's usually a centimeter or 2 centimeters larger in diameter. I want to thank you so much for joining me today as I talk about different signs that you may want to repot your plants. If you like this video, check out some of the links down below. I have 2 my repotting videos where I've done the snake plant and the jade plant from cuttings. As well, I'd love for you to join my channel, subscribe, and follow along as I do different types of gardening and even some cooking content. So thanks, have a great day.